Welcome back to CrossRutted, your wide open moto podcast. I'm your host, Eric Nichols. And this week, we've got a special guest, fresh out of the AZ Open, local ripper, Chase Haynes. What's up, Chase?
What's up, guys?
So let's talk about the weekend. So, pretty dominant. You started off going 1-1. I think in the last race, you ended up getting third. But overall, how do you feel about, the AZ Open? What was your preparation, heading into the weekend?
Yeah, it was good. I've been training over in Georgia at World Moto, and I don't know, we did mini-O's and made the trip back home to do AZ Open, and it was good. I mean, had two really good first motos, and this my last moto had a few mistakes. I tipped over and then salvaged a third, so I think it's a pretty sick event they got going, and I liked it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Seemed like a pretty good turnout as well. I think it showed that they had two divisions. And then, so Open Pro Sport, you're out there on the 450, right? How long have you been on the 450?
Mm, I've I've been riding it for like a year, probably.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
so.
And then you mentioned mini O's. How did mini O's end up going out there for you?
It's pretty good, but I hurt my knee the first day of Supercross, so the rest
Oh,
of the
really?
week kind of sucked. But I mean, I did the best I could. I got third in 450 limited in the moto. I didn't race Supercross. I did 450B, and that's the only race I did. And then I did all right in 250B. I think I got seventh, and then 450B ninth. So it
Okay.
wasn't too bad.
All right. And then we talked about, so then you jumped up to the Open Pro Sport class at AZ
Yeah.
Open. What was the reason for jumping up to the Pro Sport? Was it just, local track, you're going to be able to do pretty good, or what
Uh,
initially led to that decision?
Yeah, well, AZ Open's double pro points, so I was gonna race my 250. I was gonna do 250 pro and Open Pro because that was just our plan going forward. But I blew my 250 up trying
Oh,
to start it before practice, and then so I just did Open Pro, and then I switched to College Boy so I could do both of
okay.
those.
Nice. Okay. So what do you got next? What are your plans? Are you going to take a little bit of off season? Any plans for like SMX next or any
Uh,
of those rounds?
yeah, hopefully I can do SMX next. Futures, I was trying to do A2 and like maybe a few rounds here and there, and then I don't know. I was starting to ride Supercross after
Okay.
Christmas, probably.
Nice. And then we've seen, quite a few of these riders that are up and coming, such as yourself, entertain arena cross. I know Prescott, usually holds around. Have you done any arena cross or considered,
Uh,
going that route?
yeah, I did the Guthrie Arena Cross,
Okay.
the championship one earlier this year, but that's all I've done.
Okay. How was it? Did you like the arena cross? Or you think you want to focus more on the supercross?
Uh, I like super. I mean, the Arena Cross is fun, but it gets hairy. Like everybody's going crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But I
Right
wanted
on.
to do I wanted to try one of the Partzilla rounds
Oh
to get
yeah,
some
that's right.
FX points. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But,
And then so we've partnered with Works. We cover a lot of their races and things like that. Have you done very much off-road racing? Obviously, from Arizona, there's a lot
yeah.
of desert out there. Have you entertained that path?
Yeah, that's what I started with. So I started doing it's called AMRA. It's like a local little Arizona off-road
Yeah.
stuff, like hair scrambles. And then I did do works for a couple years, and
Okay.
then I started moving on to the more moto side. So I've done it for probably like 6 years off-road.
Okay. Cool. And then you touched on it earlier. So you're training out of Georgia. Out of Georgia.
Yeah.
What does your schedule look like? How many are you out there for? Months at a time? How long are you out there for?
I was out there. So after Loretta's, we went straight to World Moto. Um, we were there for like 3 months, and
Okay.
then we might be go back. I don't know yet. So, but before that, I trained at Game Moto in Oklahoma.
Okay.
We usually go there like before spring eating. Ponca. He does like a Loretta's camp. We stay there for like 6 weeks. So, like
Okay.
all throughout the year, pretty much.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen the spring ending. I live, 40 minutes from Oak Hill.
Yeah.
Is that the next big race that you have coming up, outside of like the SMX6? I think it
Um.
falls in April, March or April.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably the. Yeah, I think so.
All right. Cool. So, do you have any plans for off season, just getting back, or are you just going to go, straight back into your training program?
I think we're gonna try and see what I can get for bikes this year,
Okay.
and go from there and start training again. I think I'm gonna just start doing Supercross a lot. Probably go to California.
Yeah.
It's the closest. They have some good stuff going over there, and then we'll see where that goes.
Nice. And then I know ACP, they had their Supercross. I'm not sure. I thought I heard something about maybe Motoland, but how are the
Yeah.
Supercross tracks out there? Are they good enough to do the job, or you still, have to go out to like
Um.
Apollo or something?
I don't think. I don't know. I haven't rode at either of them. I haven't rode at home since AZ Open last year
Okay.
because we're always traveling and doing whatever. So I haven't got a chance to ride them. Maybe I should. I mean, they look pretty decent, but I don't know.
Yeah. I remember what was it a few years ago that had that futures race out there at
Yeah, yeah,
ACP like the
at AZ
Friday
Open.
before.
Yeah.
Did you end up racing that one?
No, no. I
No.
think I was in C class back at that time.
Hey, I know you ripped before, but yeah, I remember seeing that place was just a complete dust bowl
But
and everyone
yeah,
was just completely hating on it. Well, cool,
yeah.
man. As we head into this off season, the only thing we have going on is WSX. Have you been following any of the WSX rounds?
I've seen a few, but not really.
Yeah, right on. Well, cool, man. Well, other than that, we wish you the best, heading into 2026. Thinking big picture, as you're obviously, planning on going back and racing Loretta's and going chasing another title.
Yeah. Hopefully we can get to there. I'll probably do areas, regionals. But my like focus on is futures and combines. Those are
Okay.
gonna be get my name out there and try to race a
Yeah.
few of those. Do it. See what I can do.
Yeah, we've talked on this show before that it seems like Loretta's is becoming not as important as it used to be. Seems like a lot of, your up and coming riders are focusing
Yeah.
more on the SMX next in the future. Do you
Yeah.
think that's what it is? Supercross is definitely taking the priority?
Yeah, I feel like all the kids that have support or rides, pretty much they focus more on futures because they can do every round and combines to get
Yeah,
them points or whatever. But I feel like for me, I mean, I would do Loretta's, try to get a championship, get
right.
support, and then focus on whatever else. So,
Right on. Cool.
yeah,
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for hopping on. We
yeah,
won't take too much of your time, but best of luck heading into 2026. We'll be keeping an eye out for you. But Arizona Zone's Chase Haynes. Thanks, man.
yeah.
Take it
All
easy.
right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so Chase Haynes, like I said, just getting done with the AZ Open and with that mini O's before. So cool to have him hop on and just kind of give us a breakdown of what it's like, as that up and coming amateur. Jason, you should see like top left. You should see like the little lead button. There we go. All right. So once again, thank you to Chase for coming out. Awesome performance out at the AZ Open, and yeah, we'll see what he has going on. Heading into 2026. But all right, let's get into it. Another off-season race this weekend. It was WSX round four, sitting out of the Sweden. Really, the storyline going into it was that all those big names are out, right? Tomac was out, Ken Roxon, the points leader, done for the rest of the season. Deegan not making any races either. So it really came down to the actual championship now between Anderson, Savachi, and Christian Craig. Obviously, Christian Craig, left on a positive note with getting that win in that final race. But let's jump into it. So starting off, you look at this track. It's definitely not your normal supercross track. It looks super sandy, really loose, and it really kind of got the the moto community, asking questions like, "Hey, how would you feel if the AMA Supercross series had a track similar like this? To where basically it was more of like a full-on sand supercross track than what we normally see." And some people said, "Yeah, the tracks now are too cookie cutter. These guys can learn the tracks, after two laps." So maybe throwing something in with a really different soil could make it more interesting and maybe throw a bigger wrench into this into this format. But looking at the WSX wash in the races, man, these guys were struggling. It was super rutted right out of the get-go, right at their first practice. Guys were going down left and right. Basically all of the rhythm sections were almost rolled over into really big rollers. um and then the whoops, of course, too. So it was a really good test. for these guys. And if you look at these results, you can kind of see that it did play, a big factor. Starting off in the 250 class, so Max Anstey, he's been on this undefeated run. I think it was 11 straight, and then they got into this final race. But going into race one, Max Anstey gets the win, followed by Shane McElrath and then Cody Schock. And then race two, Max Anstey wins again, followed by Enzo Lopes and then Michael Hicks on the start so great ride for Michael Hicks. And then in the main race, it actually the perfect season came to an end. Enzo Lopes ended up getting the whole shot. It really just checked out. This track didn't really seem like you can make up time really at all. Being smooth was fast, and Enzo Lopes ends up going and taking over race three, followed by Shane McElrath. And then Anstey ended up just settling for third. He never really got too close to Shane to where, a pass was going to happen other than the start of the race. But after that, I mean, he kind of just settled in and just kind of thought big picture. So shout out to Enzo Lopes for getting that win. We talked about it last week how he's been looking great, super pole leader, qualifying leader, but just needed to see if he can get that good start and really run that top tier pace. And this track he definitely did. Now, like I said, it was more of a sandier track, so maybe that kind of played to his strengths. But either way, great job to see this momentum. I'm really curious to see if this is going to carry over into the final round in South Africa coming up. So looking at the point standings. Obviously, Max Anstey just has a commanding lead. I think he's up over 30 points. But looking into second and thirds, right now, Cody Schock has a 3-point lead over Shane McElrath for second. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Obviously, Shane McElrath is the defending champion. And Cody Schock, he's one of the fan favorite riders, right? So we're gonna see how that comes down. It's gonna be interesting. I would anticipate that they might ride aggressive, right? I mean, there's a second place in the championship on the line here, and then both of them have something to prove. So that basically wraps up that 250 class. Started off kind of boring, got a little bit better towards the end with Enzo Lopes getting that win. And yeah, let's hope that, round five will have some more excitement in that class. Going into that 450 class, like I said, all the big names are no longer there. It's really a three-man race between Joey Savacci, Jason Anderson, and Christian Craig. And honestly, if you take a look at the results, I mean, that was who was between all night long. So starting out with sprint race one, Joey Savacci really set the tone. He got the whole shot checked out. Once again, this track didn't really have a lot of areas that you can make up time. So Joey Savacci ends up getting the first win, followed by Jason Anderson and Christian Craig. So there you go, right out of the bat. The top three guys finished one, two, three. Heading into sprint race number two, Jason Anderson ended up getting the start and, really, took off, looked great. Joey Savacci behind him. He was close behind him for a little bit there. I think Anderson actually ended up, almost kind of brake checking Joey Savacci, which caused him to go down, and that kind of sealed the race win there. But overall, great ride by Jason Anderson, Joey Savacci, and then a new rider coming into it, Colt Nichols. He makes his return on his Suzuki. He was replacing Ken Roxon, but he comes in. He actually gets a third in race number three, so that's good to see. He's been, we haven't seen him racing in quite some time, so it's good to see him back and put in a solid race there in race number two. And then heading into race number three, the longer one of them, of course, Jason Anderson ends up getting the win. He ends up taking the overall. So big bounce back week for Anderson. I was pretty harsh on him last week. It has not looked good on this Suzuki. Most of the time it's been bad. He's had some good rides here or there, but he's never been able to put a full night together. And this weekend he definitely did. Of course, all the big names, they were not there, but this is a championship that Anderson should be winning by quite a bit. Aside from Roxon, because I do believe that he's a much better rider than this two guys. So shout out to Jason Anderson. And then Joey Savacci ends up getting second, and then Christian Craig goes back to third. So once again, a mix up of those top three guys in that final race. And as we look at these point standings, you got Andrew and Savacci tied, and then Christian Craig is only 1 point behind those two. So heading into round five, it's going to be interesting. It's in South Africa, and it's really just winner take all. We know Anderson's not afraid to, you know, uh, bump some elbows and get aggressive if he has to. Now there's a title on the line. All these guys, Anderson's won a title years ago. Who knows how many opportunities he's going to have going forward. And then Savachi and Craig, they're looking for their first, big bike title. So it's going to be interesting. It should make the racing really good. No more wild cards, heading into this final round either. But it's going to be an interesting round five and see what happens. And that's basically going to cap off our off-season races as we head into Christmas. And then, a few weeks later, we're at Anaheim. I think it's about the second week of Anaheim, I believe, maybe the third week of Anaheim of January for Anaheim to get kicked off. So that's gonna be really cool to keep an eye on. Um, let's go into our good, the bad, and the ugly segment before we close it off. So the good, I really have two riders written down here. I'm going to give it to Anderson. He gets some redemption. He finally puts a weekend together, wins two out of the three races, and he ended up getting his first overall podium, and he's right back into this title chase, tied for first. And I would put him as the favorite to wrap it up. So shout out to Anderson. Way to bounce back after the ugly weekend from last weekend. I also put down Enzo Lopes. He still is another guy that hasn't been able to put together a full night either. He has some flashes, obviously qualifying in Super Bowl. But shout out to him. He finally gets that race win. Last race of the night, the longest race of the night too. So shout out to Enzo Lopes. Good to see him back on the top of that box there. Once again, I want to see this momentum carrying to South Africa. I think he could, beat Anstey. Obviously, he's got to get those starts, but I hope this is just going to build momentum and kind of get some more consistency from Enzo Lopes. The bad, I put Cody Shock. He only ends up getting on the podium in the first race out of the three. I've talked about this. He was the bad, a few weeks ago, and to me, he just it doesn't seem to have the top end speed that these other guys have. He has great, endurance, but I don't know if I can see Cody Shock, winning any of these races, versus an Enzo Lopes even, let alone a Max Anstey. And the consistency just still hasn't been there. He had a really big get off, this past weekend as well, but I don't know. I expected this to kind of be more of a confidence building season. Maybe gets a couple of race wins and, kind of gets that feeling of leading races heading into Anaheim, but he hasn't really led. And then so he gets my bad performance. Now once again, he's still holding second place overall in the championship over McElrath, but even McElrath had some really ugly races to start off the season. So yes, he's in second, but it's far from anything impressive for the second in points. And then last, I have the ugly. Unfortunately, it's got to go to Nichols. It's his first race back. I think the plan was probably just to log some laps and put in some clean rides and stay off the ground. But unfortunately, he didn't end up doing that. He ended up going down, in one of the races. Flip over the bars, and it sucks. It just kind of seems like we're back into that same cycle that we were in before. Is just he had a hard time staying off the ground and just putting in consistent rides, and trying to recover from these injuries. So I mean, I don't know if he takes any positives away from it. Obviously, he did get third in race number two, but it's just once again just hitting the deck. So we'll see how he bounces back at round five. If he lines up, I don't think there's anything announced as far as him being injured, so I would anticipate it. But Nichols is going to get the ugly performance of the night, and hopefully he can bounce back heading into round five. But that is it for this week's episode of CrossRutted. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Spotify for the latest episode. We'll have one more show this year after the final round, take some weeks off, but then we're going to be back for our Anaheim preview picks where we'll have the whole gang on, go over our predictions, who we think is going to win this title, who's going to be our race winners, of course, as our surprises and who's going to be our letdowns. But once again, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next week. See ya.